This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here for our third webinar of the Network Assurance Prep program. My name is Rigo Villa, and I'm one of the community managers on the Cisco Learning Network, and I'll be your host today. In this session, we will be covering platforms and architecture review with our two subject matter experts. First, we have technical leader in ThousandEyes customer engineering, Abdiel Hernandez, and then we have solutions architect, Aaron Trompeter. But before we get the session underway, I wanted to take a moment to share a couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, I want to let everyone know that all the mics will be muted for attendees. So if you do have any questions during the live session, we ask that you please post them in the question and answer panel, as that would help us manage and keep track of all of the incoming questions. Next, if you experience any audio streaming issues during the live presentation, I do recommend using the call-in telephone number that I'm going to be posting in the chat window here in just a moment. This will also be an interactive session, so we will be launching a few questions using Slido throughout the presentation to help test your knowledge. And when we activate one of these questions, you're going to see the Slido polling window pop up on your event screen. And then that's when you'll have an opportunity to submit your answers. So we look forward to your participation. Also, at the end of this webinar, you're going to get a pop-up survey with a couple of questions about today's presentation. And we would really appreciate it if you can just take a moment to fill it out and share with us any thoughts or feedback that you may have about today's session. And last but not least, we highly encourage everyone to participate in our online post-webinar discussion after the webinar. That'll be a great place for you to continue the conversation about today's topic, and you can also ask any additional questions that you may have as well. So, and I'll be sure to share the link for that a little bit later on as well. And without any further delay, I am now going to turn it over to our first speaker to get us started. So, Abdiel, if you're ready, please take it away.
Thank you, Rigo. Hi, everyone. So let's just go over the agenda, what we'll do today, what we have for you today. First, we're going to start with a recap of what we've done on the previous, excuse me, two sessions. Then we're going to show you the domain one for the self-study prep guide that we are going to release for you today. Then we're going to have some fun with our friend Aaron Trumpeter. We're going to discuss some questions, exam-like questions, and why, how you can analyze the question and how you can answer it. Please have your phones ready. We're going to ask you to participate through Slidos so that you can get a feeling of where you are at for this exam today. And then we're going to make an announcement of an upcoming Cisco Press book on ThousandEyes. We have the very author of this book right on this call, Aaron, and his team have worked on this. So and we'll leave some special announcements, promos, etc. at the end, along with Q&A. So, like I said, and I already introduced briefly my colleague Aaron Trumpeter here. He's a solutions architect, and he has worked on a Cisco ThousandEyes book, the first one, and it's he's going to talk about that later today. Rigo, he's our friend from Cisco Learning and Certifications team, and he is leading these webinars, helping us here. All right, so just a quick recap. We've had two sessions so far. I believe there's someone asking if they can get the sessions by email. If we can answer that question. I think we have shared the previous recordings before, and we will share the recording for this one as well. So we've done the analysis on the previous webinar for domain 3. That is the section in the exam that covers troubleshooting and analyzing scenarios for network packet loss, security attacks, etc. And today we're going to do the same for domain 1. That's we have released domain 3 of the guide, and today we're releasing domain 1. So you have 2 domains out of 4. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the domain 1 and how it's laid out in the self-study prep guide. So again, just a quick reminder, the structure of the study guide covers the cognitive level, which in plain English means the complexity of the questions that are going to be part of that task or that topic. Then we cover a brief overview. How much do you have to prepare and at what level? So you craft your own studying strategy. Some key concepts, but very briefly again, we give you resources to deep dive into the actual resources from our documentation or other places as well. And we end with a question sample section. For domain one, we have 8 tasks or topics. That is agent types, location, active versus passive monitoring, one insights, integration with Cisco technologies, setting a metric baseline, and so on and so forth. But the point here is remember that the first word is your key to decoding the blueprint. That is the level of complexity for that level. So if you see determine, and I've highlighted these in a different color so that you know uh, that they are at a different level. This means that you have to have experience, not only theory-based type of experience, not only hands-on, but also experience analyzing outputs, architecting stuff. So for agent types and location, you have to be able to architect where you will deploy an agent and which agent type at what location to meet business requirements. Now, all of these described tasks that you see in here, those mean that we will ask you only theory-based level questions. So that's how you can prepare for those specific tasks. All right, and we have a couple of select, which are at the apply level, which means hands-on. So make sure you have experience doing integrations for these systems. We'll cover a few questions on these topics today. And with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to start showing you the actual guide. Here's the updated PDF file that we will share with you today on an email, I believe, or we also have the link. And so here we are sharing with you domains 1 and 3. The next release will be for domain 4. So in the first part, we have platforms and architecture, and the first task is agent types. We always remind you what's the cognitive level or the complexity for these questions. And in here, you can expect, like I said, to have experience deploying agents and choosing the right location for them. In the exam blueprint, you will notice that there are some terms such as synthetic agent, scripting agent, local agent. For this version of the exam and the study guide, we're only focusing on ThousandEyes agents. So that's the yellow note that you see in here. Now, we make a clarification of what synthetic agents are, since that's used in the blueprint. A synthetic agent is an agent that generates real traffic to take measurements out of that traffic that we are generating in there. So that's a synthetic agent in a very simplistic summary. And if you think about that, all of our ThousandEyes agents are synthetic agents. So keep that in mind. Now, for the agent types, at ThousandEyes, we have 3 agent types. We have our enterprise, cloud, and endpoint. Enterprise are lightweight, Linux-based pieces of software that you install on your infrastructure. And we have a box, VMware, where you can deploy the OVA. You can also deploy it in the form of a Docker container or a Linux package. You can install them on Cisco devices, certain or specific models of ISR, Catalyst 9000s, Nexus 9K, Meraki MX devices, Raspberry Pis, Intel NUCs, etc. So you can see that there's a wide deployment variety here. So for cloud agents, those are agents that we as ThousandEyes maintain and deploy across different cities. Right now, the number is 272 cities. I looked at the website this morning and we have 67 countries now. So that keeps growing. This number will probably be outdated very soon. It's already out of date. But the point is, you can see that we deploy this to ISPs infrastructure, cloud providers, or our own infrastructure across different cities around the world so that you can get an outside-in perspective type of monitoring. And then we have what we call endpoint agents, which is the last mile monitoring. This is software that you install on your employees' PCs, which, by the way, is very, very lightweight. So that's our agent offering in a nutshell. And in the guide, we explain, why or where you would use one or the other. For endpoint agents, we have a table where we give you references for manual installation for the corresponding operating system, but also at scale deployment. So when you need to deploy at mass installation deployments, you can use these options on the right hand side of the table. Now we offer a couple of activities which are very straightforward. It's really easy to get started with ThousandEyes. So go ahead and, well, actually you'll have the PDF file, so you don't need to save this QR code, but we have a special ThousandEyes trial for you for the certification candidates. This is the QR code in here. And then we have a Cisco U tutorial that walks you through the creation of an EC2 instance in AWS so that you can install the enterprise agent as a Linux package. Feel free to use that as your first labbing experience. And then we tell you, to assign an agent that's monitoring the ThousandEyes website and assign it to the agent that you just created. So those are the activities. That's task 1.1 so far. And let's go over to, I'll skip the questions, the sample questions, but you can see in here that we have 3 sample questions exam-like for that specific topic. Now, agent location is something that goes hand in hand with agent type, in my opinion. So here we introduce the topic, and then we do a few key concepts, summary, network, how the main components that you have to keep in mind for agent deployment and deciding which is the right location. Our agents require direct internet access, so that's something to keep in mind while deploying agents. The infrastructure that you have, etc. And then we have 2 different perspectives that we take into analyzing the agent location. One is by vantage point, which I covered a little bit already. If you're trying to monitor from the outside world, from specific geographical locations to internal resources that you're hosting. If you want to monitor from your internal resources outside to the world, say a SaaS application or something, or last mile monitoring, those are the perspectives that you can deploy an agent based on. And then you have agent location by use cases. So we analyze some of our use cases, for example, monitoring hybrid work. And in here, we discuss what would be the right agent to deploy and why. And there are some other use cases such as SaaS and API services, Wi-Fi monitoring, secure access, and so on and so forth. We analyze all of the use cases that we have in ThousandEyes, or that we cover with ThousandEyes. And again, sample questions. We have a couple of questions for task 1.2, and then we have task 1.3, which is for active and passive monitoring. This is a described task, so remember you can go ahead and study the theory, and that should be enough for you to pass these questions. But in here, we give you a very summarized um, components or key concepts for active and passive monitoring, and then we have a comparison for the two of them. In a nutshell, active monitoring is always going to be injecting traffic into the network, and passive monitoring is going to encompass those protocols and tools that collect and make an observation of real user traffic. In a nutshell, you can go ahead and read the RFCs, but that's in a summary of what the differences are. There are a little more than that, but that's a good summary, I would say. Again, sample questions. We have 1, 2 questions for task 1.3. For task 1.4, we have ThousandEyes 1 Insights. And in here, we are telling you what are the main key points for the concept of 1 Insights. 1 Insights is a predictive feature that's there to calculate or to help you choose the best network path if it can identify it. And it can integrate with what used to be vManage, now Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Manager, to collect network performance data and help you not only detect what is the best optimal path for an application or a site, but you can also apply those recommendations so that you can have your user experience unaffected, which means before your users are reporting problems reporting network degradation on their applications or sites, you get to apply recommendations, deploy a better path or the best optimal path for those applications and sites before they reach out to you, because you're actively monitoring. You can also use 1 Insights for capacity planning and so on and so forth. So remember, going into the exam, remember what is the concept of 1 Insights, how do you integrate it, and that should be good to prepare you for answering any questions in there. Again, there's a few practice questions, and we get to integrations. And I think we're going to stop the study guide review at this point in the interest of time and going back into the slide deck. So let me stop sharing. You will have this study guide on an email, so don't worry, you'll get to go through it and use it for your studies for preparing. All right, so let's get a good picture of where you are today by doing these practice questions. So, Aaron, do you want to take the first question, or do you want to start from the second?
Yeah, we can start from the first one. If you just want to move that slide forward, since you're your presenter, and we'll make it easy, right? So this one comes up a lot, right? Hopefully, if you're able to look at your study guide and look at this, or just read it and just try to understand, what are we asking? So if we're determining the agents such as synthetic users, scripting, and collecting, but the question is where do we want to deploy these? So what you need to be able to understand is the type of agents that we have. So very, very quickly, we have enterprise agents that the customer or the user would deploy, that they would actually manage. We have cloud agents that is actually ran by Cisco ThousandEyes team, but that is something that a user can actually do. And then we have actually endpoint agents that would be deployed on laptops or any computer devices. So when we look at this question, we want to be able to understand is how would I, or what agent would I be able to deploy in a data center, a branch office, or even a cloud provider? So with that said, hopefully you guys are going to be able to enter your answers here, and we'd like to really engage where you think this could be. I'm going to do mine right now. Give me 1 second. There we go. And it looks like, how many people have we answered? There we go. Okay. So really where we're at right now is this would be an enterprise agent. And why we would do an enterprise agent is a cloud agent or an endpoint agent would not necessarily go into the data center or maybe even the branch or maybe even the cloud provider. So for those guys that answered it, great. For those ones that missed it, that's okay. Let's go back to the study guide and let's look at those type of agents. We want to move to that next one there, and Abdil. I think this one's going to be a fun one for us.
Yeah, so that's going to be on agent location. And let's see, the question here is determine the right location for this agent. A network engineer wants to measure their SD-WAN tunnel performance metrics. Which agent deployment method is most suitable for this scenario? So we'll give you some time to read the question, make sure you understand what we are asking from you, and then choose the best answer.
And while you're looking at this and thinking about this, I want you guys to think about something here. Let's rule out a few ones, right? So install agent in a DMZ. Is that really going to give us the metrics to the tunnel? Probably not. Install an agent on their LAN. Could that be? It's possible. But really, those ones that you see on A and D, the overlay and underlay, right? Is that possible? Can we see that? But what is the question? We're talking about a tunnel. So let me answer my question here. All right. So Abdil, what do we think about this one? How would we want to have our audience understand this question, and really what are we asking from this perspective?
Yeah, so when you read the question, then you're not missing some key point in there. For example, for this question, SD-WAN tunnel is really what's guiding us to answer correctly.
Yeah. And for those ones that actually answered the underlay, you're not wrong. But keep in mind, what we're asking for is the tunnel. Can you apply an agent to the underlay? Yes, you can. But what that's doing is it's giving us that exact as the underlay, but we're looking for the tunnel. So just keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. So if you look at this slide here, when we, in a nutshell, when we talk about the tunnel, you are talking about overlay because that's the logical tunnel that's formed from side to side. And then when we talk about the physical infrastructure, then we are talking about the underlay, which ThousandEyes can also monitor, by the way. We can monitor the overlay or the underlay. DMZ and LAN should be easy to spot distractors if you have enough experience with SD-WAN. And to be honest, you don't have to be an SD-WAN expert to answer this. If you understand the basic differences between overlay and underlay, you should be good to go. Do you agree, Aaron? I'm sorry, I cut you.
You hit it right on the head. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. So I think we gave enough time for people to participate on this one. We had 87 responses, still some coming. So let's go to the next one, Aaron.
All right. Active and passive monitoring. So this is some of those RFCs that Abdil went through just quickly on that study guide. But what we want to do is select an example of active monitoring. So hopefully you guys were listening on that one part when we're talking about the difference of active and passive. So you can see that there's quite a bit here, but I'm going to go ahead and answer really quick if I can, as soon as I find it. There it is. Is that it? Where is it at? There we go. All right. Oh, this is going to be a good one, Abdil. I think we're going to have to talk about this one and just maybe go back very, very quickly and just review on what active and passive means, because this is a good one.
Yeah. I see a good trend though, and I'm always happy when I see the majority of people answering the correct question, because then I'm not afraid of being stoned or starting a huge tech debate that will never end.
Mhm.
All right, so the secret to answer this is, again, in a nutshell, when we talk about active monitoring, we are talking about injecting packets into the network. So that's the key. Knowing only that, you can even go by eliminating some of the other answers. Let me go to the next question here. You can continue to participate on the Slido poll, but here's the explanation. SNMP is a protocol that we use to collect, to push or pull information from the device, right? You can get so much information such as memory, CPU, even temperature. But for interface, one of the most common use cases is getting the interface utilization. But the point here is that you're collecting or making an observation from real user traffic. So that's already discarded because that's passive monitoring. Packet capture follows the same trend, and NetFlow records is sampling real user traffic data so that you can get information such as top talkers on the network, how much bandwidth is an specific application consuming on that interface, etc. So the only possible answer here is sending path traces, and that was 61% of our participants, 92 responses. That's good. Again, sending path traces is the only possible answer here because that's the only answer where we are injecting packets or traffic into the network and making the observations out of that traffic, not from the real user traffic. Is that a good summary, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that's great. Just one thing to note also is definitely encourage you to try to get into the trial accounts or a way to be able to get into the platform to utilize. Why I'm saying that is because specifically when you set up a synthetic test within ThousandEyes, you will actually see a path trace, and that is set to a default of 3. You can make those changes and increase it more, but by default, we are already doing that. So this is where we're really trying to be active, right, on actually gathering those metrics. So that's what I wanted to really point out. But thank you, Abdul.
Thanks, Aaron. So another thing that comes to mind is with ThousandEyes, you usually will get all active monitoring, except for device layer, where we use SNMP, and also some local networks metrics obtained from the endpoint agent, right? There are some metrics that we collect from right off the operating system, but those are the only 2 places where I can think of passive monitoring for ThousandEyes. And perhaps there are more features coming our way, which we can't talk about, but yeah, I mean, to help you summarize it in your mind, that's how it is with ThousandEyes. Okay, question 4. That is related to task 1.5, Cisco integrations. Aaron, can you take this one? Or actually, yeah, you can take it.
Sure. So what is the primary purpose of integrating ThousandEyes with Cisco Meraki? Right. So we have a couple of ways to be able to look at this and let's pause for a second again and let's see if we can break this down. Would it be to deploy enterprise agents for VPN connectivity? Well, if we did that, would that limit our use cases? Possible. Do we want to monitor external applications and services from SD-WAN sites? That could be possible. But what about to enhance cloud security and compliance? Well, while we can see some things from a security perspective, are we really a security tool? So that's one of those things I think we probably might want to rule out. Now, we could also manage user access policies and permissions. There are some rule-based access controls in there, but would we do that within Meraki? I'm going to answer this if I can really quick. And let's see if we can break this down a little bit, Abdil, because I think there's some things that we might have our audience maybe pick one other, where you and I were talking yesterday is I could go this direction or that direction. And I see quite a few are looking at enhanced cloud security or compliance. We also the applications and services from SD-WAN sites. So let's give it a minute here and see if we have a few more that want to jump in.
All right. I see 80 people participating already, so I think we are almost done. We have almost all people answering by now. Yeah. So again, like you're saying, you can rule out very generic answers. For example, about security and that's an answer that you could probably throw into each exam question and it probably fit in there. But it's not really something that applies directly here. It's not the main purpose. Also, managing user access policies is not something that we can do with this integration. So those are ruled out. And then we have deploying endpoint agents. I mean, that's a good distractor because it's completely possible that you could deploy an endpoint agent to monitor the user VPN experience. However, that's just distracting you from the actual Meraki ThousandEyes integration because that is not related. So really, one of the most common use cases for Meraki integration with ThousandEyes is to monitor external applications from those branches. So users are connecting to this Meraki device and you're interested in monitoring from that branch to the applications that they use, whether that's Office 365 or Salesforce. And you're also interested in monitoring what's in between, right? The internet, the ISPs, the cloud providers, etc., that go from that branch office to the services and applications that these users are leveraging on their day-to-day jobs. So good job on that one, everyone. 78% got it right. Let's go to the next one. So that's question 5.
All right.
So the question reads, what is an important consideration in the context of setting a baseline? All right, I think there's a question in the chat that says, hi guys, is there an intermediate way to use both methods to monitor? That's from Harry. Okay, we're talking about active and passive, right? So yeah, active and passive monitoring, we are not saying that one is better than the other. As a matter of fact, you need both. And if you're able to integrate those metrics into a single view for analysis, then that's the best monitoring solution, if you want to call it, that you could have. Do you agree, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that we want to really emphasize is when we're talking about active, we're really looking at the synthetic test. So when you create a test and you're asking, let's say I want to just get a HTTP response to a server, right? We're actively doing a couple of things. Number one, we're looking at a trace route. We're doing ICMP. We're doing HTTP. So we're actively also running a trace route as well. So we're doing all of these things in the background. So when we look at using enterprise agents or any agent for that matter, is we're telling it to do something, right? Something that a user would do. So keep that in mind as you're studying is the difference of the active and the passive. Because again, the passive can be the S&MP side of the house. But what we're trying to emphasize is that we're active. Okay. One other thing, really quick, before we jump into this, David did have a question to set up an enterprise topology, be able to use ThousandEyes for a 15-day trial. Yes, you can use our 15-day trial to be able to set this up. There are some limitations, but this will allow you to utilize enterprise agents and be able to get that up and going.
Yeah, and again, going on David's question, I think you're asking if you have to set up a lab to deploy the ThousandEyes agent. You can use your machine to deploy an endpoint agent, for example, or you can use VMware Fusion and download the OVA file and have a lab on your own PC, or whatever. If you have any server where you can actually, if you have a Raspberry Pi or something, you can also install the agent. We have several options for the enterprise agent. I don't think it should be that hard to come up with the lab to get started.
Right. Yeah. And worst comes to worst, you can always use a virtual box as well and put it in VirtualBox.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Now going back to question 5, about setting a baseline. What is an important consideration when choosing a time period for collecting data to establish a baseline for interface utilization on a critical network link? All right. So we're talking about setting a timeline. What do we want to capture? That's the question. So please take your time to answer the Slido poll. I'm also going to give it a try.
This one looked pretty good. I feel like this one might have been one of those ones where I think was a little bit of common sense, where we're trying to capture both off and on peak to understand is what does this look like? Are we going from 20 milliseconds to 100 milliseconds? What is our average, right? And that's what we're trying to do is we're taking an average when we look at a baseline, right? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, I think this was a good question for everyone. I think everyone's done participating. 86% got it right. We want to get the full picture, right? You don't want to get only the peak traffic or traffic where it's at its lowest. As a matter of fact, I have a quick story to share here. I was a network monitoring engineer working for a government facility, and they were using only SNMP and flow samples. And with these two, you could combine them and understand, if a specific protocol was consuming X amount of bandwidth on the network, blah, blah, blah. They had their baseline established. But there was one point where they were really thrown off because exactly 1 a.m. in the morning, they saw a really huge peak of traffic on their monitoring tool. And the point here is, they were able to narrow down this to a server doing a huge backup in the middle of the night, but they were really thrown off by it. So the point here is that was off a peak, so you want to have that in mind. You want to be able to understand how your network performs. What are your peaks? What do they look like? What are the protocols consuming those or generating those peaks, as well as your really low traffic. You want to get the full picture to be able to establish a baseline, because if you don't establish a good baseline, you're going to end up with noisy alarms and your boss calling you at 1 a.m. All right, I think we had enough time for this.
All right.
There's another question in the chat. Can Cisco ThousandEyes be integrated with Cisco CML for a lab setup? I think you can. I haven't tried it myself, but as far as I know, you can.
Yeah. So with CML, you are able to create, um, lack of a better term, an L3 connection, so a layer 3 connection to another device. That could be where your agent is sitting, right? So for me at home, I have two agents. I have one running in a Docker container, and I have another one running on a virtual machine. So I could use CML to do that. And that's a great question, because for those of you that are looking at Cisco integrations, let's say maybe with SD-WAN or Catalyst Center, and you want to be able to set that up, you could utilize CML.
Yes. All right. What is ThousandEyes capabilities? Can it do data gathering and loading in database, mirror packets, analyze protocols, load data into database? That sounds more like application monitoring stuff. I'd recommend looking at app dynamics for that. I'm not too sure if that use case is covered there, but with ThousandEyes, you can monitor application level stuff and get some metrics out of it. For example, HTTP or page load or transaction scripts, which can be customized to do a login, for example, and download a specific object or click on specific parts and follow a complete user flow. But and you get those metrics like the you get a waterfall, for example, for page load and transaction scripts. You get a waterfall, which is, you know, all of the objects that load for that specific page and how much time it takes them to load. If your browser is stuck on waiting for some elements, it also tells you which domain they're coming from, which provider is serving these files. You'd be surprised how many providers interact serving a single website. So you can identify very specific problems there at the application level, or for the HTTP protocol, in terms of availability, response time, throughput, but you don't get to databases or specific applications monitoring. All right, so let's carry on with the next question. If you want to take it, Aaron.
Yep, sure. All right, this is a good one. Your organization wants to be notified of an event as soon as it is triggered by an alert threshold. This notification be sent to their ITSM and generate an incident so it can respond appropriately. So if we sit there and we understand this question, this is going to be a tricky one for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat this one, guys. So where would we want to do this? How would we want to tie this into? Right? There's a couple of ways that we can actually answer this. So I'm going to put my answer in, and let's see what we've got. Okay, so we're seeing quite a few answer this question, and I like where we're going so far. But I do want to answer this a little bit more and go more into depth here in a second, Abdil. Let's wait for everyone to jump in there.
Sure thing. I think we talked about this yesterday, and it was a tricky one, but I'm happy with what I'm seeing. Seven. 71 responses, 75.
That's great. And while we're doing that, I want to answer this question really quick from Andy. How would you design a highly available and scalable microservices-based architecture for real-time messaging applications? That's a great question. So there's a couple ways we can actually do this. So number one is what are the users trying to do, and how would they access those microservices? Are they trying to get it via TCP, UDP? Are you want to be able to do APIs where you're actually just doing a get or a post, right? So there's a couple of things where we can be able to monitor from a microservice perspective. One of the things also is keep in mind when we're looking at microservices, sometimes we have some sort of a bus, whether it's RabbitMQ or something else where it's actually handling the messaging, where we can actually interface with that as well. So there's a couple ways we can look at that. But if the quick answer is how would a user access those microservices, and what detailed information would we want to get from that? So then we can help you craft and design that. Okay. So we got about 91 responses on this one. Do we want to dive into this a little bit more, Abdil? Because I feel like this one could throw off a few people.
Yeah, I actually see better results than I anticipated.
Yes.
Because even ourselves could debate over this. So in this case, the right answer is ServiceNow. You got it right. 59% of you got it right. And we'll start by discarding a few. So Alerts API, if you read the question, it was asking for a built-in integration, right? Alerts, API, using the API is always an option when you need to script things out, automate things, integrate systems. Yes, but that's not built-in option. So you have to do some scripting for you to be able to integrate these two together. So we can rule that out. Then you have DNA center integration, which really does not apply for this. So option B and option D are discarded easily. And then the battle comes between option A and option C. Option C is a perfectly good answer because if you don't find, we are not specifying which ITSM system you are integrating with. So when the way that you would look at this in real life is if you have an existing built-in integration between your ITSM and ThousandEyes, you would use that integration, right? So for ServiceNow, we do have a specific integration or built-in integration, which the question was asking for. Where it gets tricky is if you don't know that we have these built-in integration, you would be compelled to choose custom webhooks because that's perfectly fine. That's accurate. If we don't have an integration built in for your specific ITSM, that's the way to go. You use custom webhooks. Anyway, since ServiceNow is the only built-in integration that's completely valid and true, that's the right answer for this one. All right, let's go with the last question here, and we're done for today. The question is for network assurance platforms. And by the way, in the exam, do focus on ThousandEyes and its integrations. That should prepare you for the exam. So you are a network engineer at a multinational corporation responsible for ensuring optimal performance and security across various environments, including remote hybrid workers. So pay attention because we'll throw a bunch of features at you here. So hybrid workers, branch offices, cloud services. So select a SaaS-based network assurance platform that enables comprehensive monitoring and visibility into hybrid worker activities, internet traffic, branch office connectivity. So it's like when you're asking, for a solution to your boss and you make a wish list. That's what this question looks like. So please answer it. Give it a try.
Yeah. And the one thing to break down on this one as well is we're also talking about internet traffic, right? So how are we gathering metrics from internet traffic? What other platforms are able to do that? And the other one too is when we look at this SaaS-based network assurance platform, right? There's some quick little keys there where we might be able to find out what it is.
Yes. And while we are waiting for everyone to respond this, I see a question from Arthi Susarla, who's asking about capture the flag. So we have been launching a capture the flag event for every webinar we come into. Probably for the last webinar we didn't, but today we launched one. We're only limited to launching them for 1 week at the time. So please make sure that you try it in the first week after the webinar, because after that time it'll be closed. So for this specific one, this one is ending on June 25th at 8 a.m. CST. So give it a try. Yeah, and on the next webinar, we'll launch a new one with new missions. If there's a specific request, like, oh, I would like to have a mission on this specific feature or problem, whatever, send those requests our way, so that I can try and get you a mission that is the closest. So going back to the question, let's see here what we have. Slido.
Go. That was a good one.
Yeah, 103 participants, 88 voted for ThousandEyes. So in here, like I said, I tried to list all of the things that the question was asking from you. One of them was monitoring hybrid employee. That's a little generic. Monitoring cloud services, asking for a SaaS-based platform. So Meraki Insights is on a SaaS-based platform. AppDynamics also, I believe. ThousandEyes definitely a SaaS-based platform. But then we get into specifics. For example, browser sessions. That's something very unique to ThousandEyes in terms of enabling a browser extension so that you can monitor domains for and the experience for those sites that your users are visiting. That's something that you can do with endpoint agents. In monitoring the internet, that's where you should, immediately look at ThousandEyes, because we're pretty much the internet monitoring platform, regaining visibility there. Also for branch office connectivity, but I would argue internet is what should give it away. All right, so we are almost at time here, so let's move. In the interest of time, let's move ahead. Aaron, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Abdil. So there is a Cisco Press book coming out. While the title did change just a tad bit, because now we are, what are we, Abdil? Digital, what are we called again? The Express Digital Experience Assurance.
Digital experience.
Yes, so that you'll see. However, one thing to definitely note for the book is as we go really, really in depth. And when I mean in depth, we're talking about how do you set this up on a Docker platform, whether it's a Cisco device or maybe into Docker, and how do you actually set the virtual switch, some of the commands that are supported or not supported. And we really go further into maybe the APIs and the webhooks and integrations as well. So keep on the lookout for that. It is currently on pre-sale for on Cisco Press's website as well as Amazon.
Awesome. I'm really excited for this book. I want a copy for my own whenever you can, Aaron, please.
You got it.
All right. So now Rigo is going to talk to you about the promotions that are coming. So please stay for a few more minutes. Rigo.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you both so much. So we are excited to share some good news of an exam discount promotion that is going to be coming up for all of those who are participating in this prep program. So in our previous session, we announced that you will all be eligible to receive a discount code for 25% off of any professional level specialist certification exam. So that does include the 300 445 exam for Enterprise Network Assurance Specialist. The exam discount code will be provided shortly after the conclusion of our final webinar. And we do have 2 more sessions coming up after today, with the last one being on July 10th. And of course, we'll be sharing a little more information about it at that time as well. One thing to note about this promotion is that you're going to need to redeem the discount code and also take the exam before the end of the year. So that deadline is going to be December 31st, 2024. But this is a great chance for all of you to reduce your exam costs for taking one of these exams. So we look forward to making it available to you all really soon. If we can move over to the next slide, please. Next we have our Upskill 2024 Multi-Cloud Specialist Certification Program. So if you earn any of the 3 multi-cloud specialist certifications before December 31st, 2024, you are going to receive some exclusive benefits. So that's if you earn the Enterprise Network Assurance Specialist certification, the Enterprise Cloud Connectivity Specialist certification, or the Secured Cloud Access Specialist certification. So any of those 3 will qualify you to receive these benefits. That'll include the Upskill 2024 Multi-Cloud Badge. Also, if you certify specifically in the Enterprise Network Assurance Specialist, you're actually going to get a ThousandEyes badge in addition to that other badge as well. There's also going to be a special celebration for you at Cisco Live starting in 2025. So that's be a little bit of a great thing for you, especially if you attend those in person. But that's not all. All of the members are also going to get a free year subscription to the Cisco Modeling Labs Personal Edition. So definitely lots of great perks here. So I hope that you all jump at the opportunity to not only advance as a qualified leader in cloud technologies, but also take advantage of these benefits by earning your multi-cloud certification before the end of this year. And if you want some more information, please go ahead and scan that QR code on your screen, and that'll take you directly to our Upskill 2024 multi-cloud page. And if we can move to the next slide, please. And then we also have a couple of network assurance resources here for your convenience. So first, we have our hub page for network assurance program. And in here, you can access the exam topics, tutorials, and some other material that you can use for your exam studies. We also have a copy of the Network Assurance Self-Study Prep Guide that you can download. That's the same guide that our presenters here have been covering in the presentation. And then we also have several ThousandEyes resources, including support community, a 15-day ThousandEyes free trial, and a getting started guide. You can also access these resources by scanning the QR code on the screens. On the screen there, but I'm also going to be posting the links directly into the chat window for your reference as well. So I'm going to share that with you right now. So feel free to bookmark them, save them, and refer to them at your convenience. And next slide, please. And lastly, we do have 2 more webinars coming up in our program here. So the next one coming up is June 26th, and then we have the next one coming up on July 10th. So we hope that you all can join us for these remaining sessions as well. And we'll be using a similar format to today's session, covering several of the domains and also going over through some quiz questions as well to help test your knowledge. And I believe that will cover the resources here. So now I'm going to see if we have any remaining questions from our audience that we can address here live for them. Let me have a look at what we have here. Yeah, so we do have one question here that I see. This is for you, Abdiel, or Aaron. Feel free to unmute if you can address this one. Is in service now not a third-party application, and why should it be used specifically for this case scenario? If that's something that you can speak to.
Yeah, so really quick, and Abdul, I'll let you jump into. The question was formed around the ITSM. Within the integrations within ThousandEyes, we have a specific one designed for ServiceNow. So while we weren't being very specific, and while that could have been a webhook, but we were being precise with the ITSM, and we do have a direct integration with ServiceNow. Abdil, did you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, it's not really relevant in terms of it could have been a different built-in integration that we have. It's just the first option that we chose, but it could have been Slack, it could have been PagerDuty, AppDynamics, for custom built-in integrations. Those are the available options. The idea here was to equip you with a methodology on how to answer tricky questions around this, and also tell you that you should know which custom built-in integrations we have, because that'll be tested in the exam, and which integration you would use for which third-party tool, if that makes sense. So that was the intent. It wasn't the intent wasn't focusing on a specific third-party tool.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. So I am looking at the clock here, and I see we are a little bit over time. So I think with that question and answer, we can go ahead and wrap up our webinar presentation for today. Abdel and Aaron, I just want to thank you very much for this great session today and for sharing your knowledge and expertise with our audience. I hope that everyone found great value in today's presentation and that it is helpful with your exam studies. I would also like to give a special thanks to all of our panelists for lending a hand during the live presentation with the questions. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who would like to revisit this session, we will have the recording available on demand. All of the attendees will receive an email with information on how you can access the recording, as well as some of the additional resources within the coming days. And just to reiterate, if you do have any additional questions about today's presentation or would like to engage further about the topic with your peers, please do add your questions or comments in our online post-webinar discussion to continue the conversation there. You are going to be redirected there upon exit, but I will also post a link to that discussion into the chat window directly for your convenience as well. Thanks again to our presenters, to our panelists, and to all of our attendees for joining us here live. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Last message, the self-guide is updated, and all of you will have the links in the webinar reminder. Just wanted to point that out.
Perfect. Thank you, Abdiel. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.